It's as close to time travel as we're gonna get. This Week in Music History with Marty Miller.
So here's the way it works. We fly through a week in music history in less than 10 minutes and we tell you loads of stuff that went on this week in music history. So this time we're looking at the week of October 20th until 24th. How are you? If you have a birthday this week, happy birthday. If you've got an anniversary, happy anniversary, and I hope it is a good one and not a bad one, not a commemoration. All right, this week, talk about sad stuff. Now, this was a week of huge tragedy. In 1977,
the wings were torn off and the cockpit smashed into a tree.
In 1992, this week, George Michael was fighting a company he'd accused of professional slavery.
Modern day Elvis.
And what band landed a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records this week in 1995?
Nobody's ever done this before, so somebody's got to do it for the first time. Why not? It'd be us.
This Week in Music History with Marty Miller.
This was quite something, quite unbelievable. Even now, so many decades on, it's still, it cuts deep. 1977, the guitarist Steve Gaines, his sister Cassie Gaines, and lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, all of the band Lynyrd Skynyrd, are killed when the band's plane crashes in Missouri after running out of fuel. Now, the rest of the band were on the flight and survived the crash.
The plane then impacted the ground and skidded another 140 feet. The wings were torn off and the cockpit smashed into a tree, killing McCreary and his co-pilot William Gray. The fuselage broke off and the top of the plane tore open, throwing people out. The remains of the plane finally slid to a stop in a swampy, wooded area.
This week in 2023, an album that did very well for them, the Rolling Stones released Hackney Diamonds. And on that record, playing along with the Rolling Stones, a Beatle.
Let's put him on this punk tune. And Paul was amazing. I'd sung with Paul before, but I never actually played bass. I was playing guitar, he's playing bass. So he's great on it. It's really amazing.
This week back in 1992, George Michael took Sony Records to court in a fight over his contract with them. He lost the case in 1994, so 2 years later. But then he would work with Sony again less than 10 years later, somehow managing not to burn bridges despite accusing Sony of professional slavery.
Check this out then. Modern day Elvis. George is authentic. He's fearless.
You can hear pain, you can hear joy, you can hear everything in George Michael.
It's really sexy.
I want to leave songs that will mean something to other generations.
The Toto legend Steve Lukather has a birthday this week. Here's some advice to you from Steve if you want to be a success in the music industry. And happy birthday, Steve, this week.
I started out by ear. My parents said, well, you got to learn how to do this the right way. You should study music. Studying music uses a different part of the brain. It helps you with mathematics. It helps you with other things. It helps you with problem solving, just simple intellect, stimulating parts of your brain to make you a thinking person and also a creative person. You have to learn things. Knowledge is power. Guys, I can't stress this enough to you.
Back in 1990 this week, Pearl Jam played their first ever gig when they appeared in a club called The Off Ramp in Seattle. Even though it's raw, this sounds familiar. More extremely creepy, scary stuff in 1980, and he's still in jail. Mark David Chapman quit his security job and signed out for the very last time. But instead of signing his usual Chappie on the log, he wrote John Lennon. And we all know what happened in the December of 1980.
Then Chapman resigned his job with a bizarre gesture.
On the last day that he worked, in the log sheet where he signed in, he instead of signing his regular name, he signed John Lennon.
What day was that?
October 23rd.
Chapman was now totally gripped by his obsession and was preparing to express his hatred in action. 4 days later, he went to this gun store and bought a .38 Charter Arms special handgun.
1995 this week, Def Leppard gave themselves a place in the Guinness Book of World Records by playing 3 gigs in 3 continents in 24 hours. Tangier, London and Vancouver. From a plane 35,000 feet in the air, Joe Elliott.
We're looking forward to it. It's a challenge, and nobody's ever done this before, so somebody's got to do it for the first time. Why not? It'd be us. We always breaking barriers, and the Guinness Book of Records are on hand. If it puts us in there, that's all right with us.
Back in 1977 this week, the Rolling Stone Keith Richards was fined £205 British after admitting having cannabis, Chinese heroin, Mandrax tablets and a revolver in his London home. That same evening, Keith and his girlfriend Anita Pallenberg accidentally set fire to their London hotel bedroom. Here's Keith on the ups and downs.
Drugs, it's taken its toll on us, the road work. And these guys are older and they're all together. And you say, how do you do this, man? What's the secret? Well, you take one of these, you smoke a little bit. The penny drops, Getting in is easy, getting out is difficult. It took me a while.
Another fella having a hard time in 1998 this week, former Stone Roses lead singer Ian Brown. He was jailed for 4 months after an air rage incident during a flight from Paris to Manchester. Ian at one stage, this is awful, threatened to chop the hands off an air stewardess during a very heated argument.
The former lead singer of the Manchester band The Stone Roses starts a 4-month prison sentence tonight after being found guilty of using threatening behaviour towards an air stewardess and to the captain on a British Airways flight.
The court heard how Brown had told air stewardess Christine Cooper that he'd chop off her hands after she'd gestured towards him, offering him duty-free goods. She'd apologised, but he'd continued to be aggressive and threatened her. Later, he'd approached the flight deck, banging on the door.
And that is a look at this week in music history. We've had a look at the week, October 20th until 24th. Have yourself a good week, and we'll do it all again next time.
Zipping through a week in a matter of minutes. This Week in Music History, the podcast.